Okay. Thank you so much for joining me today, Pete and Ms. Rukhsia. I am deeply honored that you guys are here with me to have this discussion so that a lot of people have these questions that we're going to be talking about today. And this is a great way to get information out there for everyone regarding how to choose a school and how to go about things. To introduce my guests, Pete is someone that I've known for a good 7, 8 years now. He has retired after 35 years of leading curriculum globally and is currently a freelancer consultant for international baccalaureate schools. International baccalaureate schools are something that are really up and coming. It's an NGO and it's the fastest growing education system in the world. So listen to what he's saying. He knows it. Ms. Rukhsia Waqas is a program head in quality assurance for Froebels International School. She is also a freelance career advisor. She has under her belt many Ivy League and Russell Group admissions, and she has not only helped build excellent curriculums for over 2 schools, but she has also a hand in building notebooks for schools. Yes. Okay, so, and myself, I'm Arham Kashif. I'm CEO at R Konnections. We're an education consultancy and we do everything and anything related to education. So beginning with our topic, we are going to be discussing a very pertinent question that everyone seems to ask anyone who's in education, whether it's a teacher, whether it's a consultant, whether it's a principal, whether it's a coordinator, how to choose a school. And the question that we usually face is, okay, what is the best school for my child? So today we're going to be discussing the best way to go about choosing a school for your child. And I will pose questions for my participants here, my speakers, and we'll see what they have to say about how to choose a school and what is the best for an individual person. So I'm going to put the question forth. Pete, how about you go first? How can schools effectively cater to diverse learning styles and interests of students while still maintaining a cohesive educational environment? So how do you think that schools can actually meet individual needs and then also keep the educational standards going? I think first we'll talk about what are individual needs and what are educational standards. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. And if I'm speaking too fast myself, please let me know. And if you don't understand my accent, I'll speak even slower. Thank you for including me in this webinar. It's great to be here, and it's nice to see you again after all these years. It's been a while.
Yes, it's lovely to see you too.
So what was the question? The question was about how do we define individual needs? Was that what it was about? And
yes.
General standards. Yeah, well, basically I wrote down a few ideas about this, and basically the thing is all of us have individual needs. Thank goodness we're not all exactly the same. And the big question is, how do we know how to cater for those needs of each child? And it's actually really difficult. I've worked in about a dozen schools around the world, and only recently, 3 years ago, was still a classroom teacher. And I had some pretty interesting kids in my class that had some diagnosable issues, and knowing how to deal with those kids is a really tough part of teaching these days. So individual needs, all of us have individual needs. Even as adults, as learners, we have individual needs. And the big issue about how you assist kids against general standards or a common understanding about what general standards are is a really tough one. I've been to Pakistan a few times, about maybe 6 or 7, I think. And one of the things that struck me particularly about Pakistan was the fact that I was working generally with teachers who were not qualified teachers, but some pretty bright people who really did some fantastic work. And I suppose the bottom line is that if you're looking for schools to send your children to, it's actually identifying the needs that your own children have. Get to know your own kids, and understand what the school is trying to teach in terms of a general standard, whether it's a national standard and things like that. So the question, I think, really is, how do you get to know your own child? How do you get to know your own child against those national standards? And the other big issue I would always suggest is, because having been to Pakistan and worked in a few different places, I know there's some very well-known schools, particularly in places like Lahore, that a lot of people go, oh, I went to, X college, my kids are going to go there too. And the question is that actually the best for your child? So I'll just leave that for now, but yeah, over to you, Rukhsia.
Thank you, Pete. Thank you, Arham, for inviting me to this webinar. For the benefit of our viewers, I would like to start with what individual needs are. There's the gap or the challenges that students face between what is expected of them and what they're actually learning. And like Pete said, it's important to know your child, most of all, and to understand that your needs are different from your child's needs. A lot of the parents in Pakistan choose schools based on what their needs are, what their expectations are, and what they would want to be affiliated with. But they don't, I'm just generalizing over here, but generally, parents do not really look into what their children's needs are. And also to understand that one child may have a different, different needs from their other child. So if their elder child has gone to a school and flourished, it's not necessary that the second or the third child may or may not flourish in the same school. Their requirements may be different. In terms of the attention that the child is getting in that school, in terms of the size of the school, in terms of the curriculum that is being followed. So it's very important, and I completely agree with Pete. It's very important to know your child first and foremost, and then choose a school based on where your child is going to flourish, where your child is going to learn best, where your child is going to feel safe, which is the most important thing, and where your child will feel comfortable enough to learn new things, look at new things. That is I think, the baseline. Safety and comfort is the baseline, and we build everything on top of that. Arham, over to you.
Yes, thank you so much for that, Ms. Rukhsia and Pete. I think Pete is having some connection issues. He will be joining us shortly. Everyone who's messaging me wondering where he is disconnected, and he'll be joining us shortly. So moving on, now that we know what individual needs are, let's discuss what general standards are. So when we say individual needs versus general standards, what are we talking about? Ms. Rukhsia, will you take that question?
Okay, so it's fantastic. General standards are very important. There are standards all over the world. In Pakistan, we usually there are two or three types of schools. Generally, I'm talking about private schools over here. Either they follow mostly we follow the UK national curriculum. Some of the schools prefer to follow the American system, and then we have this new IB system also. These are all standards, and standards are necessary because we need to know where we need to aim at or what our goal should be. But abroad, or I would say generally, what happens is they convert those standards into levels to differentiate between students. Now, in Pakistan, we just have those standards and we just follow them. To follow standards blindly is like making a medium-sized t-shirt and expect everybody to fit into that size. That does not happen. Even for children in the same age group, we see that there is a vast variety of sizes that we require. Similarly, in education, students of the same age group require they have different needs. Let's put it like that. And it's important to, whereas, keep those standards in mind, and also to assess what level the student is meeting with respect to that standard. And then to assess the student's growth. Now, here we come into assessment. To assess the student's growth with respect to the level that the child has achieved initially, or where you see your child standing. So that's basically differentiated learning in a longer period of time. So that is very important. You cannot expect your entire class to be at the same standard. So that is also something to look into, differentiated learning. Which school is providing that? Which school is providing IEPs, which are individual learning educational programs, which is, yeah, so which school is providing that? Which school is providing differentiated learning? Are they accommodating their teaching towards the learning need, the students' learning needs, or are they just, you know, expecting everybody to fall under the same benchmark? So these things are very important. I again, when we go out into the society and we talk to parents, um, we should listen to the feedback that we get from other parents. But we should be very careful to notice if it's their, you know, biased opinion or a realistic opinion. The feedback is very important in terms of how the school is accommodating to their child's learning needs. And that is where everything stands. If I put my child into this school, will the school accommodate their teaching to my child's needs? So when we talk about standards, standards are there. We can't work without standards, but to accommodate those standards for a specific child, that's the question.
And you know, I think what parents need to know, and a reassurance to the teachers also, that it's not important for every single individual to follow a certain trajectory as far as these standards are concerned. So these standards are universal, they're general, and they're just a benchmark. And just like, you know, when your child is born, and sometimes kids can grow at a certain height, and in a certain period of time, there's like a map that they give you when your child is born. They say, oh, at XYZ months it should start crawling. So similarly, even if a child is delayed by a couple of months to crawl, it's okay. That's their personal trajectory. So similarly in education, when you have these standards and you have these general ideas that are set by international standards, it's a general idea. If your child is being a little held back or delayed, it's okay. It's not something in Pakistan, you know, like we get so concerned, and parents get so stressed out over XYZ is doing so well and my child is unable to do this. There's something wrong with the school. No, there's nothing wrong with the school, not necessarily, at least. But yes, there is a differentiated, like you said, learning need that may be over there. And that does not mean that that's something that is bad. Everyone, so when we talk about differentiated learning needs, that's like a whole entire science over there. There's different ways that students learn. There's auditory learning, there's kinesthetic learning, there's visual learning. So everyone is a different learner. Maybe that learning style is not being addressed in that particular classroom
As
because
far as, sorry to cut you.
no,
As
go
far
ahead.
as learning needs are concerned, for parents to make it easier and not to use a lot of difficult language for them, a child's prior knowledge is very important. When you have two children in the same family, one might have a larger vocabulary than the other. One might have more knowledge or more understanding of the physical things around them. Their learning style, are they you know, do they listen to you and learn, or do they see and learn, or do they do and learn? I'm talking about really young children at this point. And then their motivation, what motivates them to learn? Now, those are also things that you can look at. What are their interests? What kind of things do they, you know, really like, or they take interest in? What are their strengths? What are their weaknesses? And like Arham said, if there is a learning disability, or if there is sort of, if they're falling short on something, there's really nothing to worry about. It's just that you will have to take certain measures, and you will have to work with the school hand in hand, which you should in any case. And all of these, in today's day and age, we are able to cater to a lot of things. Schools have the knowledge, schools have the understanding to cater to a lot of problems or delays in students. However, you need to find that school. And for that, you will have to be patient. You will have to assess the schools. You will have to assess the faculty-student ratio. You will have to assess how interested the school is in learning about your child. All of these things are very, very important. So when you're looking at a school, these are the things that you should look at also.
Thank you so much for that. So Pete is still having a slight connection issue back home. He's trying to use his personal hotspot just to update everyone. Oh, and he's back. Hi there,
Yeah.
Pete.
Hello. I have no idea what happened there. I couldn't do
That's
anything.
okay.
I couldn't even check I couldn't get back my email or anything. I don't know. Maybe it's too hot here.
Back in Australia.
Sorry about that.
I'm
So,
glad that countries other than Pakistan are also having problems.
Yeah. No, it just, everything just went bang. I'll just see if, yeah, anyway. Sorry about that.
that's okay. So, Pete, we were discussing about how schools should look at general standards and how parents should not be so overly concerned when kids are not able to meet general standards in the same trajectory as everyone else in their class. How
Yep.
schools can help with differentiated learning, sessions that they can have with students, with IEPs that they can have with students. But it's not something that, people in Pakistan, I believe it's due to lack of awareness, that they don't
Yep.
realize that every child has their own growth pattern, and every
Yep.
child will grow academically and physically and mentally on their own timeline. So if someone is not meeting that timeline exactly how general standards have asked them to or require them to, it's okay. It's okay to
Yep.
let that child absorb that information in due time so that they're able to process it. And in Pakistan, unfortunately, I want to discuss this because this is something very important when we're talking about schools and choosing schools. Parents feel that just because the school is expensive, it's going to be really, really good, and it's going to make sure that all the child's individual needs are being met. They don't realize that sometimes schools are expensive just because they're providing, let's say, an array of physical activities that other schools are not able to provide. So,
Yep.
especially, Pete, you've been to Pakistan, you've been to private schools. Not every private school will have grounds for kids to play, and not every private school
No.
will have pools or the likes. So sometimes it's just the activities that the school is charging you for, and not really the teaching and learning that is supposed to be top notch.
Yep. That's right.
Sometimes
Yeah.
the school is charging you for um, the social environment, or the ego boost that you get for putting your child in that school. It's rarely a favor to the child to go to a school where he is not going to feel comfort. Again, comfort and safety are the most important thing for a child, for
Precisely.
their to flourish when learning.
Precisely. Precisely.
Yeah.
And that's
And
why
it's
I
about
really
support.
sorry, go ahead,
Sorry,
Pete.
I was just saying it's about supporting the kids because, as I started to say before I disappeared somewhere, that we all have different needs, and it's about being able to take the time to learn how to support the kids, and all kids learn differently, and and as you also said about the business of children against common standards, the fact that we've all been to school. I've worked in lots of private schools, and I've had quite a few parents telling me how to do my job, or
Been there, done
trying
that.
to, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
But like yesterday, I went to the dentist to get my teeth cleaned, and I've been to the dentist, but it doesn't give me the right to tell the dentist what to do.
Mhm.
Um, we've all been to school, and one of the things too is that, and we said this before I disappeared, is that, well, actually, there was a person I heard speak a few years ago, and he basically said to parents, leave your learning experience at the gate. Let your kids, your children, experience their education the best they can. You know your kid, that's fine, but allow the professionals, if they are professional, to work with your kid the best way they can. And so that's a small piece I would support in terms of that. Yep.
So I'm going to take what you said, Pete, and go on to something from there. That's my segue into when you said if they are professionals. That is
Yep.
a huge, huge issue in a country like Pakistan, because
Yep.
you've been here. You
Yep.
know
Yep.
that 95% of our teachers are not people who hold degrees either in education or
No.
teaching and learning
Yep.
or any kind of educational certification.
Yep.
So having schools who train those people and spend money on the training is so important, and that is something that parents should be looking for. Are the teachers in that school trained? Not how well a certain XYZ person meeting you at the gate is able to converse with you in English. It's
Yep.
just a language. You can learn other languages also, but
Yep.
are the teachers trained? Are they able to understand the difference between different kinds of assessments? You know, there's so many different kinds of assessments, but in Pakistan, it's all, I've taught you XYZ, learn from X to Y, and I'll take your test tomorrow. And that's the only kind of assessment that we know in Pakistan. So
Yep.
training and knowing that that person is a professional, and then saying, okay, I trust you, and then leave everything at the gate, leave your learning at the gate, leave your bias at the gate, and then let that professional. So when you put your child, this is honestly like a request that I have for parents, that when you put your child in a school, that means you're trusting that school with your child and their learning. So I think parents should learn to let go and trust that school, and if you don't, look for someone you trust. Look for
Simple.
someone you trust. That's so important. So
Yep.
Like
moving
taking
on.
point forward, Arham,
Yeah.
the trust that parents have in a system, and the professionalism, like Pete said, in the educational institute that their children are going to, also gives confidence to the student in what they're learning, and gives confidence to the student to in the society also, and in their within their school also. The parents' confidence, I quite agree, is very, very important, because that's like, it's like an unspoken, the silent, the sort of, how should I put this?
Understanding. It's an understanding
It's
that they have.
understanding. It's the confidence that comes with it. The parents
Agreed.
being,
Agreed.
yeah, trusting the school with it.
Yep.
So
And,
so
and
let's.
actually, can I just say, having been to
Yeah.
Pakistan a few times, I can remember working, I did an evaluation of a school, and I remember talking to some of the teachers, and they were telling me that one was a lawyer and one was an architect, and they were basically just teaching until they got married. It was basically what they said. But the quality of what they were having a go at doing, I mean, it was a private school. I'll grant that it was a private school. But what they'd done was they actually researched they were smart people, they were fantastic. And they took the time to research how to help children learn. And so it's about how do you learn, so that you can ask the kids, what are your next steps in learning? And it's all about, it doesn't really matter what you're learning about, but it's the steps in learning. It's called, well, in our IB area, it's called an inquiry. It's not a, oh, it's a model. It's actually a model. And so that you know where the kids are at and the kids know where they're at, which is completely different to most people who would possibly be listening to us today, or their school experiences. It certainly wasn't my school experience, but mind you, that was a long time ago. So yeah, no, there's some really great stuff happening in Pakistan, and it's just a matter of trusting those people to do their best. But if you see stuff that you think's wrong, as in because kids are being given a hard time for whatever reason, because they're not learning or something like that, call it out. But the main thing is just, adults have made the decision to send the kids to the school. Therefore, the kids didn't make the decision. So therefore, just trust what is happening. And if you have any issues, talk to the teacher, then escalate it up a little bit further. But don't assume you know it all because you've been to school. Enough.
Because you've been to school.
Yeah, that's it.
I like that. I like
Just
that.
because it's like I said, I went to the dentist yesterday. It doesn't give me the right to tell the dentist, how to do stuff about my teeth. I went a few years ago and there was stuff I didn't agree with and I didn't do anything about it, but that's my choice. But I didn't tell him how to do his job. It's the same with schools.
Agreed. Agreed. So
Actually, sorry, just
no,
one
no, go ahead.
point, take forward Pete's point. Actually, there is a lot of work that goes in the background of what the parents see as just a classroom, a period in
Session.
a classroom.
Yeah.
There's a lot of background work, and the report card that they see, again, there's a lot of calculations, a lot of hard work, a lot of working hours that go into it. But that's not something that is put forward for the parents to see. So I believe for them, They believe that it's a very simple job. It's not. It's just a lot of hard work that goes into that. So yes, again, trust, and trust that they know what they're doing, and whatever conclusion they have come to after going through a lot of
Planning,
system
research.
research, assessment, and all of that, reflection, all of that. So
Yeah.
yes, that is very important for parents to understand.
But usually parents think that the teacher decided, oh, I'm going to teach fraction today, and that's how everything happens. It's not really that. That's not really how it happens. there's
Nope.
there's
It's
like
not very
like Miss Rukhsia said, there's a lot of background planning, and there's not one person planning that lesson. One person definitely plans it, but it's discussed on various levels with coordinators, with subject specialists. There's a lot of standards that are looked at, a lot of assessment of the students in the class that are looked at as opposed to where they are and where we want to take them. There's a lot that goes behind the scenes that people are unable to see, and then they feel, oh, it's very easy to be a teacher. It's not easy being a teacher, not at all.
Especially with all the holidays they get.
Yeah, especially with that's something that everyone sees when the teachers are during the holidays. They're getting them, but they're not really noticing the fact. And shout out to all the really hardworking teachers across the world, that even during holidays they're either planning or checking notebooks, or planning to check notebooks, or planning to
Yep.
plan. So there's something or the other that's happening.
Yep, that's right. No, completely right.
So moving on, I wanted to talk about how, yes, we should be looking at, parents should be able to observe their children, spend enough time with their children to actually observe and see where they feel their individual needs are. But also, what do you feel is the role of an educator, someone who's in the classroom, who's interacting with a child, to help identify such learning needs and styles that will help the child develop tools to meet the standards that we spoke about?
You go, Rukhsia.
Right. So the most important thing to for a teacher is to uh, to understand what the prior learning of a child is, or of her classroom is. I was going through excuse me for my throat. I was going through another an article recently, and I was every teacher as a class needs to understand where her students stand. And the first week of your teaching in every class is very important for you to assess where your students stand. And the teachers can, base their future planning. And like you said, every lesson is planned and gone through and discussed multiple times. And I think it's very important for the teacher to A, start with the prior learning of the students, and B, keep reflecting about the her teaching, not only on her own, but also in the staff room, and also with the students. On we've started using exam wrappers in our school now, and why I was insisting on that is because it's the teacher's job to teach the students to learn, not the content, but learning to learn. And they cannot do that unless there is repetitive reflection on what learning has taken place in class. And the students need to assess their own learning and how they did it, and did it work, did it not work. Now the teacher's job is to help them with that, facilitate them with that. And I believe a teacher who facilitates a student in learning how to learn is actually making a lifelong learner. And
Precisely.
that student becomes a learner even outside the classroom, even outside the school. So I believe a lot of the teaching in schools nowadays needs to be on this particular thing, on enabling the students to do their own research, enabling the students to present their research, enabling the students to figure out things for themselves. So that's very,
In the
very important.
IB, so in the IB, what we say is in the past, it was reflection of learning. So you used to learn something, you used to do an assessment, and you used to reflect on, oh, this is what I have learned. So now we have come into what Pete mentioned before is inquiry. We're reflecting constantly. We're constantly asking that question, how did I learn? What did I learn? And why is it important to learn this? So that's called reflection in learning. That's the IB lingo that I'm using. So reflection in learning is constantly, you're doing it all the time. And I think just the linguistic is different, but every, like, curriculum is now picking up on this reflection and inquiry. And I think so, just not what you're talking about. I think I'll take a step further, learning how to learn, and then also critically analyzing. So researching, presenting, but then critically analyzing this information and applying it to your real life situations and skills. So it's a skill that we basically want the child to learn, how to learn. That's the skill that we want to, like, impart, and then eventually they will become lifelong learners, hopefully.
Yep. And it's the skill bit that I think is probably missing, because it's not it's like, it's knowledge. We can easily Google stuff and find stuff out, like what's the capital of Norway or something like that. It's really easy. So knowing the capitals of Europe is pretty useless, really. But knowing how to find that information out is really, really vital. And those sorts of skills of how to learn is vital. I mean, I remember a few years ago, I was working with a group of Year 2 teachers, and we were asking each other how we're going to find out what the kids know. And one of the teachers said, oh, they could make a puppet show. Great idea, fabulous idea. But one of the teachers said, so they're grade 2, so they're about 7 years old. And one of the teachers said, have we taught them how to do that? And it was like, oh, how? And so therefore, you've got this issue of, well, it's a great idea. It's better than making posters all the time or something like that. But you still need to know the skills of how to show your learning through different ways, whether it's a poster or a puppet show. In fact, I remember once being at a school in Southeast Asia, a small island country that I'm not going to mention, and I was doing an evaluation of a school, and I walked into a special area that every kid had an iPad, and they were in this special room. It was a curved room. It was called I Learn Room or something like that. And I said to the kids, I said, oh, so what are you doing? They said, oh, we're researching, I don't know, parts of the body or whatever they were doing. And I said, how are you going to show your teachers what you understand? And they said, oh, we're going to make posters. And I was like, seriously? If you've got the technology, use it and be shown how to do it. But there's a whole range of, they could have used, I don't know what, PowerPoint, HyperCard, Google Slides, whatever, whatever they were going to do, something interactive, something interesting, Minecraft, I don't know. But to still do that, you need to learn the skills. Enough from me. I don't want to take over.
So that's my segue into my now the topic that we're going into, technology. How can technology be leveraged to support personalized learning and experiences and transfer off that knowledge onto who the teacher or the society or however? So what is the role that technology is playing in all of this?
Can I say
Go
something?
ahead. Yes,
Okay.
please.
Thank you. No, this is kind of, it used to be right up my alley. You know Lego, Lego blocks, the stuff
Yes.
on Lego. Well, a few years ago, this stuff came out. It was called Lego Mindstorms. And Lego Mindstorms was stuff that you could make computerized, things like that. The reason it was called Mindstorms was there was an American guy called Seymour Papert, and he wrote a book called Mindstorms, which was about computers in education. And he wrote that book probably in the late 80s, I reckon, that long ago, quite a while ago. And so Lego picked up on his book and had this whole range of Lego called Mindstorms. But the point of that being that is, in 1992-93, I was fortunate to work in a school in Australia where we implemented a one-to-one laptop program. So every kid, this is, wow, how long ago is that? 30 years ago. Yeah, over 30 years ago.
Wow.
Every kid had their, I think we were the 6th school in the world to do it. There was a school here in Melbourne where I am called MLC, Methodist Ladies College. They were the first school ever. And a couple of years after they did it, we followed on. And every kid had their own laptop, which was phenomenal. And This is, as I said, 30 odd years ago. But what we did to make the technology valuable, we had to do two things. One was to know our curriculum. We really knew our curriculum. And the second thing was know what the technology can do. And when you put those two things together, you can get some really cool stuff happening. And it caters for all kids, no matter of their learning style or whatever. You can use technology. I mean, 2 or 3 years ago, 3 years ago when I stopped work, there was a kid in my class who just hated writing. He didn't see the point of it. Like writing a sentence, he'd rather just write a few words. And I'd just say, buddy, just you. Every kid had an iPad. You know, it was a wealthy school in that respect. And so he used to basically type it all up, print it out, and it was done. We just used the technology to help where we can. Years ago when I was in Thailand, there was a girl I had in my class who had dysgraphia. Dysgraphia means you just can't write. She just, for whatever reason, she just couldn't write. So we bought these things, what were they called? And they were like a keyboard with these tiny little screens. And she used to type her stuff up in that, and then she'd plug it into a computer and it'd come up onto like a Word document, and then we'd just change it. So knowing you've got to know your curriculum, but you've also got to know what the technology can do. And that's why things like ChatGPT, AI, that sort of stuff, use it, but just be aware of what it can or cannot do, because it's really great stuff.
It is.
So I think technology, thankfully, has evolved and been very helpful, especially in the COVID times. And it has completely changed the way we're looking at education now, like Pete said. A lot of students with a lot of differentiated needs can now use technology for their benefit. I'll give you a simple example of my daughter. She doesn't have any needs, special needs or anything. However, she's lazy. So what she does is, if she has to write an essay, she will record what she has to say and turn it into typed words, right? So it's an entire essay that she's spoken. She's, mashallah, a very she loves to talk. So so things have become easier in that sense, and also it has enabled children a lot, I believe. Also, the online classrooms that we have, Pete, have become very helpful also, because a lot of learning material has been uploaded on those classrooms, which enables students to, learn at their own time, their own speed, and also uploading their assignments at their own pace. So that has helped a lot with teaching, even after, COVID has ended and life is back to normal. I think it has helped a lot, and schools that are adapting this or are keeping up with this are doing very well, and they're helping students out a lot.
Agreed. You know, when I think of technology in education, I always come back to work smart, not hard. So getting kids to fill out pages and pages and pages when the world is moving to e-assessments, I really don't see the point. And if a child has even slight differentiated learning needs, and they like Pete said, so having like and something that keeps you from writing shouldn't keep you from learning. You know, an issue or a delayed ability. So I think that we should now, educationists and teachers should start being smart rather than just constantly working hard. Just, use, like you said, use AI to do stuff that you used to do and spend hours doing, but be smart about it. I mean, of course, don't copy paste everything. There's like a lot of issues with AI also. Only yesterday, a teacher was telling me that they were checking the grammatical correctness of a sentence, and the two teachers put it in AI, and both got different answers. So you still need to know your stuff. You need to know your curriculum. You need to have basic skills. But you still should be able to use technology to make your life and your students' life and the school's life easier. I think it's really interesting when teachers use Google Docs and emails to get kids to send in assignments now, because that's very it's very important. You know, it's important to let kids do work on their own time and give the best possible form of assignment that they can send in, rather than saying, no, give it to me first thing in the morning and this is how it should be. Yes, keep a timeline that the kids can meet and achieve in a smart way. So we're kind of running out of time. I'm just going to hurry up and talk about how I think parents should know, this is something we owe to the schools, being educationists, all three of us, how it's difficult also for schools to really break it down in terms of when we have a lot of students in class and individual needs are a little more than a single person can handle. And that's where, when we request parents for shadow teachers or further support from home, and that should be, you know, okay at times. It's not something that is very taboo, like, oh my god, why do you think my child needs extra support? That's okay. Sometimes kids do need extra support, and it is a challenge for like we said, teachers are not just coming in and deciding, oh, today I'll do fractions, and you know, magically there is something of fractions on the board and it's timed just right and the kids are getting, you know, they were exactly at that same point. There's a lot of hard work that goes behind, there's a lot of planning that goes into these things. So what do you guys say? What do you think, that do you feel schools face a challenge when it comes to individual needs for, you know, a whole lot of students?
Yes.
Do you want to take that, Pete?
No, that's right. Yeah, no, we do. And one of the things, having been in teaching for a while and then getting out of it to work in administration, when I moved back to Australia, I had a job in a school, a very expensive school, leading the curriculum, and then I resigned, and then I went back into the classroom. And what I needed was support, and I needed support as a teacher, even though I'd been teaching for years. I still needed support in kids who were on the so-called spectrum, whether they had ADHD, OCD, ADD, all these letters that, in fact, there was a kid a couple of years ago I taught that one of my colleagues said that child has got the hamburger with a lot. And what he meant by that was this kid has multiple issues and he needs special help. And he was a great little kid, you know, he's a little fella. He was about 7 or 8 years of age, but he just needed care and time. But what I needed the training to know how to deal with him, which wasn't so much forthcoming. So yeah, I think that's one of the biggest issues, that yes, we can ask parents to support by employing extra people, just basically keep an eye on their kid. In fact, there was a school I worked at many, many years ago where I was in charge of curriculum across the whole school, and there was a child who kept on throwing rocks at the other kids. And we brought parents in and said, look, you know, this is a bit of an issue. If your child keeps this up, you're either going to have to get a support person to be with him all the time, or he's going to have to leave the school. And the parents then offered us $5 million to build a new building, which wasn't solving the problem. But yeah, so it's all about training people. Money doesn't help. I mean, you need money to train people, stuff like that. But you know,
Yeah.
the teachers that I've worked with, particularly and I know it's difficult because there's a lot of teachers in Pakistan who are not qualified teachers, but if you choose it as a career, I mean, teaching is a phenomenal career. It's fabulous.
It is.
Yeah, it is. But you've just got to basically support the kids and support the teachers as best you can. And a lot of that's just training, specific training.
That's so true.
I'd just like to bring in one more thing. Support,
Yep.
I believe teachers, teaching is one of the most difficult professions because there's one person who for a number of hours is working with so many young human beings, and they have all their likes and dislikes. So support is universal. Teachers need support. Teachers can also sort of accommodate their classrooms with differentiated centers. That's very helpful. If you have a corner for students to do math activities, and a corner for vocabulary activities, another corner. So a lot of students who are either ahead of their class or who are at that point not ready to take up that lesson can use those differentiated centers. So classroom environment is also very important. how the teacher is setting up her classroom, what all the students can do in that classroom. That is also very helpful in terms of teaching, and that
Yep.
also supports the teacher in her job.
Yep. And
Great.
the thing you just said then too about the centres was you actually used the word differentiated, and differentiated is exactly what we're talking about. I didn't mention it before. You're completely right, but differentiation is what it's about. How each child has different needs, and you've got to try and work out how to best help those differentiated little
Yeah.
darlings.
Right. So, guys, since we are running out of time now, we have exactly, I feel, 10 minutes left. So, we're going
Yep.
to one last question, and then we're going to wrap it up and let people ask questions if they have any. So, how do you, can you guys share examples? Let's just go to the last one. Can you guys share examples of successful differentiated learning examples that you guys have been through or heard of where schools have implemented differentiated learning and actually achieved something with students who had such requirements?
Can I jump in? Yep. Is that okay?
Go
Please,
ahead. Yes,
Yeah.
please do.
yes.
Yeah. We we sort of covered it, I think. In that, it's what's great. Like, okay, I'll tell you a personal story. When I started teaching overseas in the mid-90s, I had a kid in my class who had, he was part of the spectrum, and he had letters after, he was diagnosed with whatever. And I was told to make sure the kid took his medication, otherwise he'd be climbing the walls, and so forth. So I actually thought I'd just start with a blank slate and see where we went. Anyway, we had a pretty good year. There was a couple of times I had to be a bit more straightforward with him. Like one time he was teasing one of the girls in the class and about her name, and I sort of just spoke to him and I said, look, how would you feel if I spoke to your mum like that, or your grandma or your sister? And he was like, well, horrible. No, okay. Anyway, as I was leaving that school, I had on my wall in my office, I had a poster of a PowerPoint that this kid had created. And what we'd done was we got the kids to write stories, and then we got them to illustrate the stories, and we used the illustration as the backdrop of the PowerPoint, so that it had the text and the picture. And I was just amazed this kid could do it. So I actually printed it out and I had it on my wall. And when I was leaving the school, I thought, well, I didn't know what to do with it. I thought I've got three choices. One is I could keep it myself. The second one was to throw it out, or the third one was to put it through the internal mail service at the school. So I did that. I sent it to the kid, who at that stage was, he was about 15, I think. Anyway, one day he rocked up at my door and I said, hey, what are you up to? And he said, I've just come to say thanks. And he came and gave me a hug. And the fact that he was a 15-year-old boy who came and gave me a hug, because I took the time to just not tar him like other people had, made a difference. And it was just taking time to try and meet his needs best. Now, I'm not saying I've done that with every kid, but that was just one of the things. And I think it boils down to just taking the time to get to know the kids, develop a relationship with them as best as you can, as in a professional relationship, and just do your best, and just think that these are little kids and they're not doing the wrong thing because they're horrible. It's just because we're all different, and that's the way it is. So that's just a simple example of
Thank you. That was a beautiful